When Charles de Foucauld entered the confessional of his spiritual father, Abbe Henri Houvelin, he was 28 years old. He had seen a lot of life. He had been orphaned when he was 5 years old. He was adopted by his grandfather. He had entered the military against his will. He had inherited a huge amount of money. In many ways, he went through many lives, like all of us, before he experienced the greatest change in his life, what he had been looking for, what he had been searching for all of his life. At 28, he found that his real longing and his real desire was really for God. He had been a disobedient soldier. He had brought his mistress to his military barracks in Algeria, and he had done explorations of Morocco. He was a very brilliant man in many ways. He was a scientist. He was an excellent artist. But he was always a man, as he said, who experienced great emptiness. And even though he had moments of real frivolity and perhaps happiness, he realized that there was something that was missing. He grew up in a Catholic family, and he had seen Catholicism, like every young French man of his age and his time. But it was through the influence of a priest who had visited his cousin, Marie de Bundy. He had come to know this priest, Abbe Houvelin. They discussed religion, and Foucault had a real sense, I think, of the transcendence of God while he was in Morocco, and also while he was in Algeria. He had seen Muslims pray 5 times a day. And he said so often in his writings that he saw something that he had never seen before. He had seen people pray. I think what he really said was he experienced transcendence. I'm not sure how that squares with his Catholic experience. I think perhaps his Catholic experience was ritual, beautiful, liturgical ritual. But he really didn't seem to find any companionship in that. God wasn't real, if you want. And so he prayed often, God, if you exist, show yourself to me, which is a prayer. Uh, it's an act of faith, really, in many ways. God, if you exist, show yourself to me. And so after this interesting search at the age of 28, he goes into the confessional of his friend Abbe Houvelin in the parish church of St Augustine in Paris, and he has gone there several times just for the quiet, because he really had fallen in love with the desert. The desert was very much a part of his experience. I often wonder if the desert didn't reflect his own inner silence, if the desert didn't reflect his own barrenness, his own hollowness. He went into the confessional, and there he told Houvelin that he really wanted to believe. And almost a mystical moment, Houvelin said, just go to confession and see what happens. And he did, and it is the great moment of his conversion. I begin with that because I don't think we look at the word conversion more solidly, if you want. The word conversion really is metanoia. It's really to change your mind, to change your direction. Metanoia really means for your heart to melt. It was the experience of Charles de Foucauld in that confessional. He said, the moment I believed that God existed, I could live for nothing else. I think it's an important point in his life to begin with, because it wasn't just finding a religion. It wasn't just coming back to Catholicism. It wasn't coming back to the creed. I think Foucault fell in love with Jesus of Nazareth. It was a moment of transcendent, metanoia, and Foucault really fell in love with Jesus of Nazareth. There's a difference between being in love and loving. I'm still not sure what that is, of course, but being in love has a sense of passion, and it has a sense of really wanting to give ourselves completely to find the object of that love. So this experience of conversion brought Charles de Foucauld, through his spiritual director, directly to the Gospels. And this is where I think Foucauld, like his spiritual friend Therese, they didn't know each other, of course, but Therese and Charles de Foucauld have what I call a real biblical, evangelical spirituality, even though they were wonderful, pious books and all kinds of good Catholic reading at the time. Foucault, like Therese, went through his spiritual director immediately to the four Gospels. It was there that he took every phrase, every word of Jesus. He actually wrote the New Testament out by longhand. He made his own New Testament, if you want, to make sure that he knew every word, every passage where Jesus spoke. He wrote all the words of Jesus in longhand. He put together a composite, if you want, and he called it the one model. We have one model only, and that is Jesus. We don't want to be like any saint. We don't want to be like any great person. We have one model, he said, and that is Jesus of Nazareth. So this conversion is one of the remarkable moments in his life, and I think, of course, in the lives of many saints. But I see in the conversion of Foucault, I see someone who is so madly, passionately in love with Jesus. I've looked at Charles de Foucauld and studied him for 50 years. I never read St Charles de Foucauld, now St Charles de Foucauld. I never read him without longing, almost jealously longing to love Jesus the way he did. I just see a man so passionately in love with the man Jesus of Nazareth. It also had something to do, certainly, with Charles de Foucault's time in the Holy Land. I believe that after Foucault was converted, his conversion, he went to live in the Holy Land. And there I think he found Jesus as a person. When you travel that road and you see the Sea of Galilee and you travel all these places, the New Testament doesn't become a fairy tale anymore. It becomes the place where God became a human being. And it's overwhelming to think of the canonic love of God, that this tiny, insignificant place, Nazareth, that this was where God humanized himself. And so it was, I think, in the Holy Land that Charles de Foucauld began to, if you want, love Jesus as the three-dimensional person. And at the time, they were greatly influenced, of course, by the new devotion to the Sacred Heart. And the devotion to the Sacred Heart was really a renewal of the humanity of Jesus. In French spirituality at the time, the revelation of the Sacred Heart was quite a revolutionary experience because it was really the beginning of a very exciting time of the humanity of Christ. So there were a number of things that brought together this conversion. But what does it mean for us to look at that moment of metanoia? I think that Foucault, Charles de Foucauld, to me, is a perfect example of an icon. An icon is a window into heaven. Our understanding of icons is that when you look at the sacred image, you're looking at something that's deified. I think that Charles de Foucauld, for me, is an icon. He's a window. He's transparent. He's glass. I can look through Charles de Foucauld, and I realize this is a gift to me. I realized that I was found, that Charles de Foucauld found me, just like Jesus found the lost sheep. I think Foucault found me. I was 21, and I was desperate to find someone like him who wanted to live a simple life, a poor life, a life completely on the gospel, a complete dependence on God. I was young, and like Foucault, I was gangbusters for God. But Foucault would mature, of course. And this is why we look at what it means for him to learn to love Jesus as he matures, as he goes from this moment of conversion to an understanding of his vocation. And yet, December 1st, 1916, Charles de Foucauld was shot to death. He was there in the sand for more than 2 weeks. No one knew he was dead. He died completely alone, without a follower. He died completely alone, with no one caring. And yet here you and I sit today, wherever you are, long way from Tamanrasset in the Hogar Mountains of Algeria. And yet this man, this Charles de Foucauld, has gone from that confessional in Paris. He's gone to the Hogar Mountains. He's traveled all over his world. And finally, he found the love of his life. I pray as we look at this series, that what does it mean for us to listen to those words of Jesus, those overwhelming words of Jesus? Foucault said that Jesus said, "This is my body, this is my blood." The same way he looked at the little ones and he said, "Whatever you do to the little ones, you do to me." He said, "The mouth that consecrated bread and wine was the same mouth that consecrated the little ones." And we are all the little ones. The same mouth that said, "This is my body, this is my blood." He also looked at people and Jesus said, "And this is my body, and this is my blood."